Hello everyone, how's it going? So in this video, we're going to take a look at Lucid Group Inc. trading under the ticker symbol LCID on the Nasdaq. So we have talked about Lucid, numerous times on this channel. And every time, we analyze the fundamentals, we analyze like the price momentums, this and that. We try to take a deep dive into this company because truthfully, I do believe that it's one of the more interesting and the companies with like more potentials, higher potentials than many other growth stocks. As 2022 is almost over, whatever I'm going to say now is probably going to also have like somewhat of a projection on 2023 and beyond. And hopefully these are going to be valuable as well. Like it's not just going to be commenting on what's happening now, but also what's likely going to happen in a few months, if not a few years. So we know that Lucid recently went through a round of investment. And we can say investment, but really, like as far as we are concerned, it's just an equity dilution, if anything. So when we were looking at the company's books, I think the latest one that I was reading was the Q3 of 2022. Yes, they have a lot of cash on hand, but the thing is, their operations overall is not bringing in positive cash flows. So this is why, like, for Lucid, they eventually have to do something in order to replenish their cash coffers. And the easiest way to do this would be to sell equities. Yes, they can take more debt, but this also brings other kinds of bad news. Namely, they have to pay it back. Whereas for equities, well, people come in because they trust you. People come in because they think that, the future is going to be better than the present, and the present has to be better than the past. This and that. So, despite this investment, the stock fell. Why is that? Probably because, one, the investors were not that happy that 1 point something billion dollars from different partners of different sides and sovereign wealth funds have diluted the existing shareholders. That's for one. And the other one is maybe because a lot of people don't have a huge amount of trust in the future, in the near-term future. And are they right to do so? Are they a little bit paranoid? I think that they're truly worried about the state of the economy. For a long time, and this is a little bit paradoxical, but for a long time, companies didn't have to worry about sales or fundamentals. They didn't necessarily have to worry about the bottom line as long as the top line keeps growing. They didn't have to worry about where their cash flows are going to come from as long as the share prices were high. That's no longer the case here. And is it going to be the case in the future? I mean, of course it can, but is it going to come back to the same sector? For now, we can't say for sure. So this is why for companies like Lucid, they now have to rely on the real economy. They now have to rely on the fundamentals to do well. Like the days when every single announcement that they make provides like an additional catalyst for the stockholders, these days are long gone. So right now it's going to be sales of cars, profitability, cash flows, and so on. Which also bears the other question, like, we know that EV cars, they have way higher valuations compared to what we have for traditional car manufacturers. I've always been wondering, like, for how long is this going to last, right? Because, I mean, if we look at traditional car manufacturers, I mean, yeah, sure, their independence range is going to be less significant than what we have with Lucid or Tesla. But at the end of the day, does it really matter that much? Like, for example, some of the biggest car purchasers are car fleets of different companies. Now, do those people have to only go to like the recharge stations or the plug-in stations every 500 kilometers? You see what I mean? Like typically people stop for a coffee or a bagel or like a gas refill every 100 or 200 kilometers. And a lot of cars, a lot of EV cars can achieve this. So at some point, I think that the market is going to ask ourselves, um, have we given EV companies too lofty of evaluation? Especially, like, I think that this kind of logic is going to accelerate, especially in this new era where the companies have to rely on their fundamentals. In other words, the same as like the traditional companies. Like I think that this is something that's going to create some sort of chemical change in people's mind when it comes to EV companies. Of course, I hope that this day will come as late as possible when they actually have strong fundamentals to show off. But like time is certainly ticking. And we know that the market is a place where ultimately, you know, it's whatever we think is right that's going to be the rule. Whatever we think the future might be will become the self-fulfilling prophecy, especially regarding the price action. Now, having said all this, does Lucid have any sort of value in the long term? I believe that it does. Okay, I believe that regardless of the current state of the economy, if the underlying assumption is the EV sector is going to be relevant for the next 10 or 20 years, then yes, I think that Lucid is going to be able to grow on that basis. Now, is Lucid going to be the next Tesla? I think there can only be one Tesla, but it can certainly be another significant player, at least in the US, for the high-end EV cars. Okay, it doesn't have to be the next Tesla to do well. Right now, it's suffering from the overwhelming pessimism regarding an impending recession. This kind of mood is not going to last forever. And, right now we also have the double pressure of high interest rates and high yields from like other kinds of investments. Is this going to last forever? Is the world going to, go through a long deflationary period? You see what I mean? Like, how long before the printing machines start to print money once again? Of course, probably not for any time soon, but like the yields at some point, they have to go down. And if they go down, there will be more capital percentage-wise to come back to the equities because they are always looking for growth. And Lucid, with the EV cars, with its Lucid Air, and with the possibility of scaling up the production, this is what they've been announcing since forever, does have some value going ahead. So, do I recommend you to buy it? It really depends on like what's your risk profile is, and also what's your understanding and assertions on this industry. If you think that Lucid is going to do well in the future, if you think that EV is going to be around for the next decades, then yes, by all means, go ahead. And I would say that you should expect the stock to fall by another, I would say 30% before we can look at anything like, before we can look at any sort of possible rebounds. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen for sure, but when like structuring your trade, I think that this is a prudent thought to have. I would recommend to slowly DCA your way in over the next at least 3 to 6 months, and to hold it for at least a couple of years, like 3 to 5 years. That would be a decent chunk of time to see if our assertions now, are valid or not. I would recommend to commit between 3 to 5% of your capital in Lucid.